All right, we are here again for another amazing episode of the Real Concrete Coating Talk Pod.
First, say, Rudy, you're one of the first marketing guys that actually reached out to me and was interested in what we have to offer because it was a benefit to your clients.
Again. All right, we are joined today with a very special guest on the Real Concrete Coating Talk Pod. Super excited to have you. We've actually kind of been bouncing around their schedules, but there's been a lot of chirping going on in the back end through the Facebook forums and all that stuff about some of the things that you've been putting out there. And that's why I wanted to invite you on this podcast, because I think it's really, really important for my audience to kind of like get a really good understanding about what's going on here. So why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a bit about your story and how you got here.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I want to first say, Rudy, you're one of the first marketing guys that actually reached out to me and was interested in what we have to offer because it was a benefit to your clients. Generally speaking, like marketers and I have to convince marketers to try drip jobs. So it just is a testament to you. And I just admire that because it's, we are offering a great product for people that are buying leads. Like, you need this product. So thank you for that. I missed the first question. I just wanted to give you some comment. What was the question?
Yeah, it's no, hey man, and listen, I'm actually really excited. Like you serve your community well. You have a really, really big Facebook group for paint
Yeah.
contractors. I don't know, what is there, like 16,000 or is it
Dude,
60,000?
almost at 200,000.
200,000 people in this group.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? There's a need here, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's also a need for concrete coating, and you know, concrete coating has been around for a long time, right? But it's really kind of exploding now on the
It
residential
is.
side, and a lot of these people are coming into this industry, right? And a lot of them come in with having no idea how to run a
Right.
business. They can see the money, right? And so when they realize they get into this thing and they're kind of falling on their face a little bit, it's useful to know the types of tools that you need in your business, systems, sales, marketing, all
Gotcha.
this stuff, right? To make it easier, right? And so
Yeah.
that's kind of why I wanted to bring you on, man. So thank you for
Yeah.
coming on to this podcast, man.
Yeah.
I think it's going to benefit a lot of people. So the question was just, you know, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about
Background.
your story and
Got
how
it.
you got here. Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Well, I'm excited, man. First of all, let me make it clear. I am a painting contractor. I
Yep.
do have experience in epoxy. There was a time in my business where I wanted to add epoxy to my services, and I sold quite a bit of it. It wasn't until I tried to transition to 100% solids epoxy that I learned a very, very, very valuable lesson to stay in my lane. I don't think epoxy is one of those add-on services. I think you go all in on it or you get out of it. And
Yep.
I even went as far as going to a few trainings for how to grind concrete, because I realized that just applying the muriatic acid to the concrete wasn't the best approach. So I wanted to do what was best for my customers. It actually turned out that I tried to skip a step, and people listening to this, the pros are going to laugh. I actually got I think it was 180 grit sandpaper, and I sanded a floor with a pole sander, a concrete floor. This was in my adolescence, what it felt like early on in my business. And I ordered this 100% epoxy online. They said that I could do it, and with a pole sander. So I do it. And long story short, I quickly bought some of those spike shoes on Amazon, and I got the cheapest pair, Rudy. And as I'm spreading out this epoxy and realizing the mess that I made. Now, listen, this is a 3-car garage that I did by myself, no help, just by myself. And obviously, we know that there's a 30-minute pot life. And again, man, this is just trying to take off more than I could chew. Got to a point where the spikes on the bottom of my shoes, the bolts were coming out because these damn shoes were so cheap. Come to find out, I'm slipping and sliding all over this garage. The customer's looking at me. This was one of the most craziest experiences of my life in business. And long story short, the epoxy never cured. It was gummy, and I had to scrape up the entire floor by hand. So from that, I have an immense respect for concrete coating companies.
Yeah.
I don't take it lightly, and I think the business side of it, if not handled properly, could be a detriment. But if if handled properly, it could be the magic that you need to take your business to the next level. So I'm a painting contractor. I own a painting business here in Florida. I have 13 employees. We just stick with houses, Rudy. We don't do anything else. But through that and just kind of building the business, I recognized that I needed to be in two places at once, and that's where Drip Jobs came. That's where Drip Jobs was born.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get to that here in a minute, but and it is really, really critical to talk about this because it's the whole point of this podcast. But let's kind of go a little bit into what led you into kind of like designing your own CRM, because what I really want to talk about is a little bit more about the struggles that not just concrete coating, it can be painting, it can be any service business. The biggest struggles that they have, especially in the beginning, is closing jobs, right? And not having a proper follow-up in place. And so there tends to be this situation where, and I've seen it countless times in the Facebook forums and even from clients, where they're just like, well, we run Facebook ads, but it's never worked for me, or these leads are crap quality and they suck and all this other stuff. But the truth is, you targeted that person and they filled out that form. They spent time doing this, right? And so they became a lead. There is a certain type of buy cycle that happens depending on the type of service business that you have, right? For example, painting a house, maybe it's going to take a couple months, 2-3 months before they decide that they want to do the house. Sometimes they want it now, if they're selling or buying, whatever the case might be. There's so many different variables.
There is.
And the thing is the thing that frustrates me the most is some of these, and I know for a fact because I just talked to somebody about this. And actually it's a guy who's going to be a client this week. We just had a really good chat yesterday, and he was literally, what he did, because he's starting a concrete coating business, what he was recommended to him was call like 3 or 4 different concrete coating companies to come to your house and give you a quote.
Yeah.
Right. And out of all 4 of them, how many actually closed the job on the spot?
Probably none of them.
0. How many followed up after the case?
Probably none of
1.
them. 1. Yeah, 1. It was probably a one-time, hey, have you decided type deal.
And then another one was, he said the guy didn't even call for like 5 days after he got the lead.
Yeah.
Like, you lost that sale. Like, so it's really, really important to have systems in place to be able to make this thing work, right?
Yeah.
First thing is you got to call these leads within 5 minutes. I don't care what anybody else says. It was even in the concrete coating growth summit, right? Just here in Vegas, right? Where I can't remember his name from Top Rep, but he said the exact same thing. You have 5 minutes. And the reason why that works is because the person is sitting on their phone or at their computer and they're actually checking things out. They're actually getting quotes. So the first person who calls wins. Right. And so there's a lot of stuff based around sales that's really, really important to really grasp. Like, that is the number one thing, right? And they're not going to be available when you want them to be available. They're available right now when they became a lead, right? If you call them in 2 days, who knows? They could be on a plane somewhere. They could be putting their kids to bed. They could be working, not on their break. Like, there's so many different things that happen in their lives. They're not just going to stand around and wait for you to call them. It just doesn't work that way, right? So there's a huge gap in this relationship building between the prospect and the business, right? And so many different things have to happen, right? One of the things is what we're talking about is closing jobs using software, right? Obviously automation is key, but you don't want to lean on automation 100% either. There's a human element to this that works with the customer experience. Would you agree with that?
Oh, it's the essence of what I do. I mean, ultimately, this all started, my journey with leads started in car sales, and I was given a stack of papers, and I was told to follow up with people that went into service to get their oil changed, and these were my prospects that I had to get into the dealership to buy a car. And what I learned through just repetition and repetition, I would be the only one doing this, but I would sit in the back office, secluded from everyone, and I would make calls from my cell phone. And you're talking 100, 150 leads. Now, the thing about it is you'd hear people have all these different reasons of why they can't, but maybe they will, right? So I can't do it right now, but maybe later. Or, hey, I'm going out of town this month. Can you call me back later? Or, hey, you know what? Follow up with me next month. And most of us hear these things and we give it no merit. We look at it like, okay, you're not interested. Well, guess what? Do you plan on being in business next month? Well, wouldn't it be nice if you had someone ready to go? And wouldn't it also be nice if your CRM handled that for you? So this is the essence of lead nurturing. And it's a concept that a lot of hands-on business owners, most of the people who start these epoxy companies are artisans by trade, and they didn't spend their early years in sales, nurturing leads and having to fight for their next meal. So the thing about it is when you own a business, you've got to marry the two. Marry the business side and you got to marry the production side. But here's the cool part: with automation, you can take off some of that heavy lifting. And that's kind of the thing, to what you're saying here is that we have 5 minutes. I think it's less than that. I think that there's no loyalty anymore when it comes to a customer reaching out for their service. Customers are selfish. They want their job done and they want fast results. No one is making the epoxy job the biggest focus of their day. It's usually a to-do list item given to them by their spouse. Hey, did you call the epoxy company? We want to get that done. And the longer you wait to provide customer service for someone is the longer that time period goes from the time that they were interested in you to the time they become uninterested in you. And that interest could have sparked from a simple Google search, or it could have sparked from that Facebook ad, or it could have sparked from something that made them feel confident in you. And the only thing that kills confidence is time. And what we found in Drip Jobs is the automation beats everything. You're not talking 5 minutes anymore. We're talking 0.02 seconds from the time they click the button to the time they get a text message inviting the customer to move forward to the next step. And then the clock restarts. That next step is a submission or a guarantee that they want you to come to their house. And that's what Drip Jobs does. And then from there, the clock resets. Okay, now we have time between the time they book the appointment to the time we show up. My question to you is, what's happening in between that time, Rudy? And for me, when I teach sales or I coach individuals, I want to know, are you building value between the time you book the estimate and the time you show up to the house? Because if you're not, you're wasting valuable time. Sometimes that's a 2 or 3 day gap that you could be sending out drip messages with samples, with this is how we do our work. Here's a recent review. This is what our story is. And what we're finding is, for at least my painting business and some of the others using our software, is they knock on the door and the customer already feels like they know us and they're excited to meet us, rather than us having to build that excitement when we knock on the door.
Little mic drop right here. Well, bam. That's a mic drop. That's a mic drop, guys, because that is so critical, right? Like me and my partner Kevin, when we're starting a gutter cleaning business, we're going to franchise it all out, and it's going to be the same process, because I know for 100% certainty that this is the way to build value and relationships with prospects, right? You just got to get out of that contractor mindset, or what I like to call either you're an estimator, right? Or you're a order taker, right? Let's get into the sales mode here and build relationships and the good, like, white glove customer service. Like, I can't stress enough, man, because you're coating a garage floor. You're coating a garage floor. How essential is that to their life? Not very essential. It really isn't. Does it build value in their home? Yes. Does it do all these things? So this is the stuff that you got to look at. Like, here's how we can guide you.
Luxury experience.
Exactly.
This isn't a need here.
And I like to use, the analogy of Star Wars, where there's Yoda and Luke Skywalker.
Absolutely.
Right? You're not the hero here, guys. I'm sorry, you're not. You're Yoda. The customer is the hero. So it's your job to make sure that they win. Right?
We want to be pursued. Like, I think that's an important thing. Like, as customers, like, be your customer. And like you said, you had someone feel what it felt like to be a customer. I think that's so valuable. At least for me, when I became a homeowner, I think I got better at sales because I felt the feeling that my customers feel when I don't show up on time, when I don't respond to their requests. Ultimately, they have the money and we're trying to get it from them, right? And it's like, we want them to voluntarily give it to us, and we want them to not compare us to our competitors, because if they do that, number one, they're making a big mistake. Anyone listening to this, obviously is competing against painters like me who used to say that we do epoxy, and they're, I was charging $1,000, $1,500 for a floor when you guys listen to this are charging $3,000, $4,000. And what you're having to do is you're trying to create value in a way that gets a customer to justify paying more than what they can get from someone else. And to them, it's not very clear unless you make it clear. And I personally believe that there's only a few ways to make it clear, and that's by overdoing customer service and having extremely good communication that builds this trust in a way that makes them feel like going with an alternative is a mistake because they're not even close to your level of customer service. That's the only way you can do it. That's it.
Anyway, yep, 100% agree with you, man. Like, for real, that's the only way to do it, guys. Like, I hope you can rewind some of this podcast and listen to that again, because, I mean, you've been in business for a long time, Tanner. You know the ups and downs of building a business. And kind of let's go back a little bit in time and kind of tell me what led you to decide to want to build a CRM. Obviously, you used other services before, but like what was that like moment in time where you're just like, I'm doing this myself. Like, I'm going to build this thing out. Like, what led to that?
Yeah, I mean, just it starts with first being a frustrated salesperson and not having a solution that fit what I needed it to do. Coming from different sectors, a CRM is normal. You start a job at a car sales, a car dealership, you're given a CRM day one. They don't operate without it. And when I did life insurance, I had to kind of create my own through a spreadsheet because the broker that I was working with, they didn't have something, right? This was, maybe they do now, but they didn't back then. And then ultimately, when I worked at the bank, the entire bank is built off of a CRM. It has the money that you have, it has the contact data, it has people that I can reach out to for certain products. And so for me, this was an obvious need, and I needed it to do certain things that I couldn't find. And it was a no-brainer. It was like, okay, well, if I can't find it, I'm going to build it. So I did. And this was before I made a major investment to have a custom built solution. This was me patching together the resources that I had. And I don't know if you know this software, Rudy. It's called Active Campaign. Have you heard of that? So Active Campaign's an email marketing software. And what I did was, at the time, I was buying leads. I didn't have great guys like Rudy who could generate leads for me. This was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. This was Home Advisor. Those of you just winced or probably had an ill feeling after I said that word, but this is what I had to do to survive. So I had Home Advisor and I was getting these leads. And ultimately, I'm like, man, I'm up on a ladder painting with my crew, or I'm driving around, or I'm in an estimate and I get a new lead. And those of you who are experiencing this, because you're going to relate to this, you get that feeling of immediate anxiety. This could be on the weekend. This could be at night, and you get a lead and you hear us guys, Rudy, the top rep guy, they're all talking about how fast you need to contact this lead. Well, what happens if it's the weekend and you're with your family? Or what if you're at Disney? Or what if you're doing things that, that fulfill your life, but then you have this urge to contact because you don't want to miss out on an opportunity that you need. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I had to create an automation, and I discovered something called a webhook. And a webhook is just really internet communication between one app to the other. And then I used an app called Zapier to do it. So when the lead came in from Home Advisor, Rudy, I connected it to Active Campaign and triggered an automated sequence. In that sequence, I recognized that I could ask them to book an appointment. I connected that to You Can Book Me. And guess what, Rudy? The magic happened. A lead came in when I was doing something, and the lead booked themselves. And from that, it was curtains. I sold that software system to 50 companies. It was called Trade Thrive. And then at that point during COVID, I made the leap to build a custom solution because we just had so much demand for what we were building.
Yeah. That one you said, well, You Can Book Me? Is that what it's called?
It was You Can Book Me. Absolutely. Yeah. It's similar to Calendly. It was just a app where you can go on, a customer could select a time and book an appointment.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Actually, I really like that.
Yeah.
But now you've made it an all-in-one solution. The one thing that really, really set the stage here for me, where now I'm just a raving fan of this software, because like, hey, there's hundreds of CRMs out there, guys, and I have seen most. Okay, and I will tell you that the reason why I like this one so much is because it's an all-in-one solution. There's a sales pipeline in there, guys. You can literally see the entire journey of the buying process, from beginning as a lead to booked appointment to the sale.
Yep.
right? Then there's follow-up after that to get reviews,
Yep.
referrals. The whole thing is built in here, guys. Like, it's just, for me, it's just, why wouldn't you do this? Like, and you know what? Competitively, price-wise, it's good. Like, you're right on par. And there's a lot of other software, a lot of other CRMs out there that are, they're good for the team building side and like that kind of thing, but it's extremely expensive for somebody starting out. Like, it's outrageously expensive.
One of the
I'm not
cool
gonna
things is
say
that
it.
we don't have a board of directors dictating our pricing, right? The cool thing is that it's a community led growth product where in software it's so normal to seek funding. Like most people don't have startup capital,
Yep.
6-7 figures to invest in software to get it up to par, right? When you just start a software company, you have to get it up to par, which is like if someone's looking at Jobber or someone's looking at Drip Jobs, we've surpassed par. We have people that come from a software that I think they just got another seed round of another 100 million, and we have companies that come in droves to Drip Jobs. So like we've got to par, and the thing is we did it through consistent natural progression, and that is the cool. I think that behind the scenes, that's our unique value proposition, is that everything that we do is calculated. We don't waste resources, and it's very consistent growth. There's no board of directors that look at our balance sheet at the end of the quarter and say, hey, how can we increase this number because we want our shares to increase in value, or we want to do another seed round. It's
Yeah.
I'm the decision maker. I decide what gets done. I decide how the prices go. I decide what features get pushed forward. And I love the community of painting contractors, concrete coating contractors, contractors in general so much that my first thought every day when I wake up is how can I make this the best software to ever exist for the trades? And that is the focus. That's it.
Yeah. Good job, man. I really love that. So, I guess what would I mean, we kind of already talked about this a little bit, but like, what would you tell others who are currently in the struggling state of closing more jobs? Like, aside from the CRM thing, like, obviously that's important, and we did kind of elaborate a lot on that. But like, is there something that you could add to that?
Man, it's, the thing is you have to understand the concept of the customer journey, but you also have to understand the motivations behind why your customers want the job done. So CRM aside, I spent 2 years of my business without a good CRM. It doesn't matter. The CRM is going to help you scale. It's going to help you organize and optimize. I think obviously it'd be good if you could get it early on, but you don't need it. It's one of those things that ultimately, if you understand the psychology behind why someone wants an epoxy coating, then you can position your offer in a way that gets them motivated to want to work with you because it aligns uniquely with their specific needs. And I think that's what sales is. The best salespeople help people arrive at their destination, not your destination, right? And I think if you go in with the mindset of, hey, I want you to buy for my reasons, then you're going to find yourself wondering why people aren't buying, because people buy for their reasons. They have reasons that they want the epoxy done. Now, to the degree of which you understand those reasons and to the degree of which that you position your offer to those reasons is going to make all the difference. Example, you get to a customer's house and you let them dictate the sale, right? You're letting them tell you, hey, I was thinking about getting epoxy. I think I want this color. Usually that's exactly how the conversation goes. And I'd like a price. Now, what you'd probably do if you're not trained is you're going to go in there and you're just going to measure the floor. You're going to talk about your company, your values, your standards, your process, all the crap that doesn't really matter because you're expected to do a great job. Instead, what you should be doing is asking the customer why they want it done. And I think there's a lot more to that than what meets the eye. A customer might say, well, I want this to be my workshop. And I used to have an epoxy garage floor back in the house that we lived in. I just loved it because it was super durable. And if there was ever an oil spill or something, I didn't have to worry about it. So then you'd say, well, do you know the difference between epoxy and polyaspartic? And then you can get into different degrees of technicalities that actually hold weight because it's based on a customer. Oh, well, let me tell you about polyaspartic and how great it is. Now, let me ask you this. How are you going to, or let's say you go to a garage that's fully loaded with junk right? I think that happens every now and again. My thought is what systems do you have in place to prevent the customer from doing work? Because that's valuable. So instead of waiting for them to arrive to the conclusion of one of their fears, which is having to move everything, say one of the great things we do is we partner with the local pods in town, and we're
Yep.
actually going to facilitate a pod drop off. Like if you own an epoxy company and you're not doing that, you're losing the game, because I'm going with the company that's going to make it easier for me to arrive at my destination. I'm not going to set aside a whole day on a Saturday to tarp off all my crap in my garage that I haven't touched in years. So you need to, like you said, Rudy, white glove it. So those are just some things that I think of. And it's the same in house painting. It's I'm looking for the motivation, and I'm providing unique value only to that specific answer. We can offer a ton of things. We have cheap paint. We have great paint. We have fast process. We have slow process. We have white glove process. We can do a color consultation. Not everyone cares about all those things. Let's find out what they care about and then position our offer directly for that specific need.
Yeah, 100%. And like you could even create packages. What I
Right.
like about packages is, and a lot of people, they have a hard time wrapping their head around this thing, but like if it's just a psychological thing, right? So if you
Option.
have like a basic package, which is just like, well, here's just like an epoxy floor, there's no flake, nothing, just like we're just gonna epoxy it, blah blah blah. It's this,
Right.
right? And then we have this one, which has like the polyaspartic top coat with the broadcasting, and then we
Right.
have this package, which actually includes the stem walls, it includes your stairs, it
Right.
includes a pod and a moving company that's insured to move stuff. We can have it in and back in, if, or like move out and back in if you want, right? That's this package here. And what I like about doing that is when you only give them one option and it might not solve their problem, it's going to be a no. But if you give them three options, it's which one do I want?
Right.
And how many people want the cheapest one? Not very many. Not very many, because then they see the low end to the high end and they're like,
Yeah. And then you might
I
get
want,
somebody that says, you know what, I want to spend time on my weekend cleaning out my garage. That's a benefit for me because it makes me feel like I'm contributing to the project. And then you
yep,
say, great, no problem. Let's adjust this for you. And it's like, again, you need to be versatile. You mentioned early on, Rudy, that people aren't closing on the spot. It's not so much that they're not closing on the spot. They're just missing out on a great opportunity to provide more value after that price is presented, because
yep,
after that price is presented, generally speaking, you're getting ghosted. You know, you send that email, you don't hear back from your customer. One of the
yep,
things Drip Jobs is going to do is follow up with your customer. But what
yep,
you should be doing is you should be figuring out why they aren't buying. Generally speaking, it's probably due to price. And it's
yep,
not so much that the price is high, it's that they can't justify why the price is high. So to give you a simple example, everything that you sell, if you've ever sold anything, it's because the customer approved the cost. They said
yep,
to themselves, the money that I'm giving you is worth less than what you're giving me. That means that something you did made it feel like the epoxy job is worth more than the money. And in some cases, some customers can't justify that, whether they
yep,
get a bid from someone else and that guy comes in a lot cheaper, or maybe they had a job done a couple years back and it was way less. And if you're
yep,
not asking those questions, then how could you possibly showcase the value? So, for example, Mrs. Jones, have you ever hired a professional epoxy installation company before? Oh, yes, I had one done in my house in South Florida. They did a great job. And you'd say, great, what did you like about that process? Well, I liked how they came in on time and they were there for a few days. Bingo. Oh, it was a few day job. Well, we do a 1 day coating. Let me emphasize to you why our service is worth more,
yep.
because you wouldn't have known that if you didn't ask. So we can go on and on for sales, but the psychology behind sales is so fun. I don't do hard closes. I do educational closes, and I make you arrive to the conclusion.
Yes, consultative sales. That's what it's called,
There you
right?
go.
It's a
I like that.
consultative sales process, right? Where, and that's the thing that interests me the most. I am fascinated by human psychology and behaviors on
It's
buying
fun.
things,
Me too.
right? Like it's yeah, you run away from pain or you run
Yep.
towards desire. Most of the time they're running away from pain because they just need the problem solved. So you're in the problem solving business, guys. You're not in the concrete coating business. You're in a problem solving business. So if you're flexible, like you said, Tanner, to really work with them to give them what
Right.
they're looking for, price will never be the objective here,
I do
right?
want to make a point though, Rudy. I think for me early on, I was always okay with negotiating my price. I wasn't emotionally attached to my price. Now, you may hear from certain sales gurus that that's a bad thing, but for me, there's phases to sales. And the first phase is survival. That's
Yeah,
what some are in now. It's I need jobs to survive for myself. The second phase is I need jobs to help others survive. And
yeah,
during that transition, the focus should be I need as many jobs as possible, especially in concrete coatings where we're doing one job a day, five
yeah,
jobs a week, sometimes four, sometimes three. And we have 2 days on the schedule where there's nothing for our guys to do. Some of us pay them, some of us say, hey, sorry, tough luck. Right.
yeah,
So for
yeah,
me, it's like be open to negotiation so you get the practice of closing on the spot. You
yeah,
understand the triggers that get people to move, and you start to learn how to get yourself out of the production. That's a
yeah,
second phase where if it weren't for me learning how to negotiate pricing, I negotiated a price today. I sold an $11,200 exterior paint job, and the guy, was kind of on the fence. And I said, hey, listen, I have a little room on the price. If I adjust this price and give you a little bit better of a deal, can we move forward? He said,
yeah.
yes. I said, great. I can get to 10.7. Perfect. I'll put down the deposit. $400 gets us a $10,700 job. On to the next one. That's my mindset. That's how we do it. And it's always proven to be beneficial.
There's also something else really good with that too. You can use that like as leverage, like you say, but you can't negotiate on price if you're only charging $5 a square foot, guys. Like you got to find value within
Sure.
yourself about what you believe in that you offer as a company and service, right? But aside from that, the really good thing about using that statement or that question is, and I kind of word it a little bit differently, but it's very similar. I'll say something like, listen, Mr. Smith, like after everything that we've talked about today, right? What's stopping you from moving forward? Oh, it's the price. Okay. If I can make the money work, what else would be stopping you from moving forward?
There you go.
Right? Because then what you're doing is you're uncovering what's called hidden objections, right? It's like, well, honestly, I just, there's all these different things that are going to come up. Guess
Generally,
what?
they'll say nothing after that because you're
Or
probably
that.
going to do a great job up until that point. And I think most people want to hire us, and I want that to
Yep.
be the case. I want you to say they were my first choice, but it was just the price. Like if I do that consistently, I'm doing a great job. But
Yep.
there's some people, and I can't tell you how often this happens. We have an automation in drip jobs. I hope my customers aren't listening to this, but after 5 days, it sends out a text message. Dude, it's the most simple text message. It says, hey, Rudy, it's Tanner. Listen, I have an opening for one of my crews coming up at the end of the month. I could take $250 off if you'd like to move forward. Let me tell you this. I've sold more jobs with that automated text message than anything I've ever done. And it's simply because it gives people the feeling that they're getting something and we're give and take. But I don't just give a discount. It's always with something in return. Listen, we need the deposit today. We need to move forward
Yes.
today. I don't want to come across desperate. And I think you can easily come across desperate if you don't structure your discount in a way that makes it feel like you're doing the customer a favor rather than them doing you a favor. And I
Yep.
think there's a position of authority there that needs to be balanced pretty well. But I think you get that. I'm just kind of emphasizing how we do
I
it,
love it, man.
in
I
our
love
business.
it. It's so true, man. And the thing is like that sign of desperation, the customer smells all of it.
Yeah.
And they will use that to their advantage. What was once probably an amazing customer is now turned into a customer that knows that they can get a super cheap price from you.
Yeah.
And then they're going to complain about the entire
Yeah.
process and the
Everything's
floor.
perception. It's all
Yeah.
perception. You show up in painter's pants and you show up with paint on your hands, you are not going to be perceived the same way the sales rep from Wise Coding is when he comes in, or these big franchises that come in with their 1-day promise with these guys in polos wearing Rolex watches. You have
Yep.
got to elevate everything from start to finish. If you're pulling up to a customer's house without a wrapped vehicle, I'm sorry, you will not be perceived the same way as someone who has a wrapped vehicle. And you might think, well, I don't want to spend the $3,000. Well, you're just looking at the short term. You're not looking at the branding aspect of what that can do when you pull up to someone's driveway right up to the garage with a beautifully wrapped vehicle. In the customer's head, they are thinking trust.
Yep. 100%. I love that. That's a really good way to end this as well. So, for all of you listening, if you're like really kind of into this and you really want to get a Drip Job CRM account, I think there's what, a 14-day
Rudy,
trial.
I'm going to give anyone that listens to this podcast 100 days for free. Just put in the coupon code Rudy 2.
That's my login for my username login for my CRM. How did you know that?
Is it?
That's so weird.
So you put in Rudy 2 as the coupon code. I'm going to keep this coupon code active until April 1st. So for those of you listening late, you get 100 days of Drip Jobs free. We're so committed in helping your customers, Rudy, and helping you listening. Rudy 2, you get 100 days for free.
Good. I like it. See what he did? Everything we just talked about gave me something of value, made me feel like I can invest in it, right? And so anyway, I love it. Thank you again for this amazing episode. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to see a lot of value in this. Any questions that you guys have, you can reach out to me or Tanner. I'm pretty sure we'll be open and available to help solve your problems, like help you get through this, right? We're all in this together. It's a huge community of contractors and business owners, and that's the point. We all need to get through this together. So,
absolutely.
Right? All right. So let's end it there. Thanks again, Tanner. I really appreciate it.